Thank you, John. Okay, I'd like to call this regular monthly meeting of the Capital City Development Corporation to order. It is February 14th, 2022 at noon.
So, Madam Chair, as we've done
Yes.
before, if Sarah or Sandy, can you confirm the boardroom is open to the public, and then let us know who is in attendance in the meeting room?
Yes, the boardroom is open to the public. Boxcast has been confirmed that it is live streaming, and present in the meeting room is Joey Chin and Mary Watson and myself, Sandy Lawrence.
Okay. So, Madam Chair, we'll do a quick roll call. Commissioner Beater.
Here.
Commissioner Haney-Keith.
Here.
Commissioner Hurd.
Here.
Commissioner Jones. Commissioner McLean. Commissioner Stevens.
Here.
Excuse me, Commissioner Zuckerman.
Here.
Madam Chair, you have a quorum. 5 are in attendance.
Thank you. We will start with our first item. Any changes or additions to the agenda? Okay. Seeing none, we'll go ahead with our work session. The first item is our Trailhead Annual Report with TM Rastegar. TM, welcome back.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's nice to see you.
And the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you very much. Yes, my name is TM Rastegar. I'm the Executive Director at Trailhead, going on for 3.5 years now, and we are Boise's Entrepreneur Support Center. On behalf of the Trailhead Board and our staff, I would like to thank the City of Boise and the CCDC for your continued support. I also wanted to thank the CCDC Board of Commissioners for giving me the opportunity today to present our annual report. And as you can tell, I am talking fairly fast because I have prepped about 20 slides. I only have 10 minutes, but there is no other way to highlight all this important work to you than I did. And so I will fly through these slides pretty quickly and hopefully leave some time for Q&A. That said, I believe I'm giving the prompt to go on to the next slide. So next slide, please. I'll give you a quick summary. We'll look at our operations and our financials. I will highlight some members and alumni and their impact on our community. And then lastly, I will fly through all of our programming. Next slide, please. So 2021 can be summarized in one sentence. It was a very challenging year for our organization, and yet we're able to create some positive outcomes for the startup community and the entrepreneurial ecosystem, both of whom we serve. And we will also build a foundation to charter a way forward in our future roadmap, and more on that later. So for 2021, the trend of member attrition continues. Ever since the pandemic hit in 2020, we have lost a significant amount of members. We ran a fairly thin staff last year. We were not immune to the great resignations and lost 2 very good employees who've moved on to better things. Those setbacks were offset. They were offset by alumni success, and I'll share more of that with you in more detail today. It was also offset by an increased amount of revenue from fundraising, mostly driven by our programs as well as our board of directors. We also launched some new programs, and we were able to maintain our existing program portfolio. Next slide, please. Quick snapshot here, overview of our org. I'm happy to announce that we've just hired a new program manager and brought on 2 new BSU interns. I'm no longer by myself, which is great. We also grew our board of directors this last year and added 3 new board members. We brought on Sean Keithley from the City of Boise, Kelsey Barclay from Deloitte, as well as Ian Harris, CEO of Vinyl. Next slide, please. When we look at our financials, the numbers show a slight recovery from 2020, where we actually made a loss. We ended 2021 with a decent positive net income. Again, that's from a loss of about $30,000 the year before in 2020. We capitalized on 2 PPP loans, both of which were entirely forgiven. And our revenue, again, was largely driven by sponsorships and contributions. Next slide, please. It's just a quick year-over-year comparison to show the recovery after our record year in 2019, a big slump year in 2020, and we are on our way to improve our financial metrics. As you can see in 2021, there is a slight but also significant bounce back. Next slide, please. All right, this is probably one of the most important slides here. So what you see here is a table with members as well as our alumni. And the numbers at the bottom, the total is mainly driven by Love Every's $100 million raise, as well as Plex Track's raise of $80 million. They raised first 10 and then follow on 70 million in 2021. It's noteworthy to share that Plex Track has moved into their own offices in downtown Boise on Bannock Street next to 10 Barrel. Other highlights are that we helped launch Revenate, which is a new startup with our new member, Kate Blanchett, who moved to Boise about 18 months ago. Natural Intelligence System, which is another well-known alumni of ours, won the most innovative company in Idaho for 2021. And they just hired 2 more PhD scientists that are not included in this list because they were hired in 2022. Both of which also relocated to Boise. So our alumni continue to attract talent to our city. All this brings our total metrics to a whopping 370 new jobs created, $219 million in funds raised. And I believe we can actually go to the next slide. And we helped our members generate over $150 million in revenue. And we've awarded over $360,000 in non-dilutive cash to members and participants of our programs. Next slide, please. This is intended to be an overwhelming list of companies that we've served. On the left, the column that's highlighted in green are the companies that we served in 2021. Next slide, please. All right, let's get to the heart of what Trailhead is all about. Let's talk about programming. And we're going to start with Boise Entrepreneur Week. So that's Idaho's largest entrepreneurial event. It's free to attend. We were able to award $140,000, bringing our all-time total to $300,000 out of Entrepreneur Week. Now, this is very important because the recipients of this money are early-stage entrepreneurs who most likely are not attractive to angel investors quite yet. And this cash is non-dilutive, meaning there are no equity strings attached when they earn this money. So we raised a total of $250,000 to host Entrepreneur Week, formed a new partnership with the 2-Minute Drill, which is a Bloomberg TV, Amazon Prime, and Apple TV show. We hosted a new program called the Investors Choice Conference with our partner, venturecapital.org. That program is tailored to founders and startups who are a little further along in their life cycle when compared to those early stage entrepreneurs I just mentioned. Overall, we had over 1,000 registrants, 750 average daily unique viewers across our 81 events that took place in that week, which is pretty significant given that this was an entirely a remote event, not an in-person event. We also earned $750,000 in local and regional media value, effectively promoting the Boise startup community and the entrepreneurial ecosystem locally as well as regionally. Next slide, please. Quick snapshot of our sponsors. The point I want to make here is that sponsors do not only provide us with financial support, they also get involved and volunteer to help plan Entrepreneur Week. They participate in events, they mentor entrepreneurs, and they help us judge competitions. Next slide, please. One of my favorite events, Trail Mix. We were able to feature 7 finalists from diverse backgrounds this year, and we gave away $35,000. And the much coveted shelf space at Albertsons went to the winner, Earth Beverage. You can see Sam and Eric sort of at the top there. Eric from Cocoa Bombs took 2nd place, and Allison from Chicana Foods won the Scoggin Impact Award. Next slide, please. Here's our main pitch competition, which this year was formatted as the 2-Minute Drill because that's the TV show we partnered with. We featured 13 finalists. We gave away $35,000, and it's noteworthy that Maggie and Crimson Medical tied for 2nd place, and we just decided to award an additional $5,000 and not go to a tiebreaker there. Next slide, please. Boise Pitch Night is intended to entice deal flow by bridging the gap between early stage entrepreneurs and angel investors. In 2021, we hosted 9 pitches. 5 of those went on to Boise Entrepreneur Week and pitched again. In total, companies who've participated in Boise Pitch Night went on to raise $20 million to date. Next slide, please. I'm going to briefly talk about the Youth Innovation Challenge, also took place at Boise Entrepreneur Week. It's basically a reverse pitch competition. We source problem statements from businesses and civic leaders in the community, including the city of Boise, Albertsons, Cradle Point, and ClickBank. 2 One Stone students won this year, and they picked a problem from Black Box VR and actually built a pretty impressive prototype demo to win the competition. Next slide, please. Idea Set Go is designed for baby entrepreneurs, as we call them, or wantrepreneurs. It's essentially for people who want to explore the idea of entrepreneurship and see if it is for them. Noteworthy as well, Dan DeClaus, the CEO and founder of PlexTrack, who again raised $80 million in 2021, participated and launched PlexTrack out of this very program about 4 years ago. Next slide, please.
Madam Chair, Tim, I just got to say, I just came back from seeing Dan, and he actually brought up this very program as we were talking.
Oh, great! Were you just you were just at their offices? Yeah, it's impressive in that maybe too much detail. I heard when Dan went through this program, he was working on baseball batting cages with his dad, and had abandoned his subject matter expertise in cybersecurity. And it was through this program that he was sort of redirected onto cybersecurity, and PlexTrack was born. So thank you for mentioning that. Here's one of my favorite programs, You Lead Idaho. It's a remote entrepreneurship program, and it's specifically designed for high school students in rural Idaho. They have in total earned over 160 dual enrollment credits to universities, and we hope that that spurs the go-on rate for them. And they've earned $50,000 in scholarships and prize money for their schools. I'm especially proud of the 2021 winner that you see here on this picture. It's Team In or Out from Shoshone. They went on and won the statewide Idaho Entrepreneurial Challenge that Boise State puts on right after our program concluded. So kudos to Team In and Out. Next slide, please. A new program that we launched is what we call the Ecosystem Blog, and we did this in partnership with Built in Idaho. We're essentially using the power of storytelling to inspire individuals and empower others in our community. So we're able to multiply the exposure of our startup community and its actors, and thereby help fuel their success. Other media outlets, both local and regional, have covered these stories, which makes for a more competitive media landscape that reports on local founders, entrepreneurs, and our ecosystem. Next slide, please. Another program we launched is called Coffee Clutch in partnership with Perkins Coie. This is intended for early stage founders that have questions and or challenges in the legal space. We typically bring on a local expert. In this case, you can see it was David Kaplan from Micron Technology. We essentially do a case study on any given legal topic in order to help our members both be aware of legal topics and also give them the resources to ask for help. Next slide, please. So lastly, for 2021, here's a quick snapshot of our annual fundraiser. I really hope you had the chance to review the video, and I linked that in the annual report that's included in your board packet. I especially want to highlight the contributions by Cradle Point and Alturas because the highest sponsorship level we actually sold was for $5,000, and the fact that both of them came in significantly above our highest ask is just affirmation and validation that Trailhead is greatly supported by our private industry partners in the ecosystem. And I also want to point out that our fundraiser and our total fundraising for the year was also fueled by an increase from our board of directors. I'm very proud to say that Trailhead has a 100% giving board. They are very much engaged and are supportive of our work. And if it wasn't for their contribution, this last year would have been a much more difficult year for us to weather. And that's it for 2021. I have the next slide is a quick snapshot of 2022 and roadmap. I'm just going to highlight a few things and then we can get to Q&A. Mainly our goals for this next year are to build out a team. Like I shared with you earlier, we hired a program manager and brought on 2 new interns. We really need people to come and help us execute the work for our community. As an organization, we want to refocus on programming and community building and move away from the traditional co-working model. And we're going to do that by activating grants as a resource and as a source of revenue. We've already launched new programs with 2 partners. One is with G-Beta. We have applied for the Inclusive Energy Innovation Prize to build the Boise Clean Tech Accelerator. And we also are a partner on another grant application from the EDA, specifically to support women founders. And that grant is led by Tech Help Idaho. A couple of notes around what I mean by refocusing on programming and community building. I think it's important to share with the Board of Commissioners that Trailhead operates 2 locations. Our second location is called Trailhead North. We have decided to cease operations at Trailhead North, and our last day here is on March 31st. There are several reasons that led to that decision. First and foremost, with North lacking demand, it's been a financial burden for our organization. But more importantly, us ceasing operations at Trailhead North signifies a move away from traditional co-working to programming. And I say that because 5 years ago when we started Trailhead North, there weren't a lot of halfway homes for entrepreneurs in Boise. That has changed since. We have Fort Builder, Regis, Office Evolution, Wheelhouse, Kiln is setting up shop in Meridian. There are, in other words, lots of other private options now that weren't there 5 years ago. We also expect there to be more supply for flexible working space on the market in the near future as companies that lease in the downtown core of Boise are going to repurpose their space to be flex space. And that's all I had for this year's annual report. I think I did decently on time. Any questions?
Thank you very much, TM. That is quite the list of accomplishments and programming. It's very impressive how much you got done, especially considering the state of the pandemic in the last year. Are there any questions from any commissioners?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Commissioner Beater.
just a quick comment. Hats off to you, TM, and your team navigating really 2 years of really tough, of a tough situation. And to have the kind of success that you're having despite that is really impressive. And I wanted to make sure and note that. I can only help. Trailhead came out of first the lack of anything like this, and we were getting really hurt by that. But it came about because of the downturn when many fewer people were starting companies. We learned that the number of startups had been relatively consistent for years before that. But in the Great Resignation, I'm understanding that more people are starting businesses. And I think once folks do that, they're going to find out they're going to need help, and Trailhead will be even more valuable. But to have the kind of year that you had and the kind of headwinds that you're seeing is a real tribute to you, and the success of the company speak for themselves. So here's to 2022. Thanks, TM.
Thank you, Commissioner Beater, and thank you, Madam Chair. I like to say that much like Boise, Trailhead tends to punch way above his weight class, and we're fueled by very passionate people and supportive partners that got us through this last year.
Hey, Madam Chair, this is Commissioner Jones.
Yes, Commissioner Jones, go ahead and please be safe on the road.
Yeah, no, I am. I'm intentionally not looking at these wonderful slides I'm hearing, but I just wanted to also add, I wear both hats. I'm sure many of you, as you know, I'm on the board as well of Trailhead and obviously CCDC as a commissioner. The thing I've really appreciated about maybe the dual purpose of both organizations is that even in a world of perhaps growing private solutions, the ability to nurture access that Trailhead represents to our various citizens as they build out the kind of innovations that many of these first-time or smaller enterprises, the programming, the affordability level, all of that is a result of, I think, the vision of our city leadership, CCDC leadership, and ultimately Trailhead's commitment of its board. It's clearly well supported and obviously well led with TM. It's a comment, but I just want to again also salute. I think a lot of vision from a lot of different stakeholders and a lot of sweat equity, to use that term, from TM and many others in a world in which we're trying to nurture the empowerment for all of our more entrepreneurially inclined citizens. And so thank you, TM, and good work.
Thank you, Commissioner Jones.
Madam Chair.
Yes. Who do we have here? Commissioner Stevens, go ahead.
Madam Chair, TM, thank you. Just question on successful members and alumni. I think you mentioned a little bit of the sponsorship that you get. I'm wondering, is there sort of a feeling once these members become alumni and they're successful, are they inclined to support Trailhead through sponsorships or other ways, internships or jobs to other Trailhead type folk? Or can you just speak to that for a moment?
Yeah, that's a really good question, as a matter of fact. Couple of examples. Killer Creamery, they make a Better For You ice cream. They graduated our space about 2 years ago. They came back and sponsored Trail Mix. They sponsored Entrepreneur Week. And they also lend their resources to help us mentor food product entrepreneurs. Happens to be an area that they're very good at. But also Love Every and National Intelligence Systems have both contributed financially to Trailhead and to our fundraiser. So to answer your question, yes. There is a positive feedback loop between members that graduate, achieve success, and then give some of that back to Trailhead.
They don't forget where they got their roots started.
Yeah, they don't forget. I stopped short of asking them for a percent of equity, but if they were to offer that, I'm sure there'd be a way for us to figure that out.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry, there was someone else and I couldn't see who.
Yeah, Madam Chair, this is Commissioner Hurd with a comment.
Please go ahead.
I just want to thank Tim for your really informative update. It's really great seeing all of the impressive activities happening at Trailhead. And I also want to encourage or acknowledge your steady and strong leadership, especially during the challenging season that we're experiencing. I'd just like to encourage you and the Trailhead team to continue to leverage the visibility that Boise has been experiencing. With more of the workforce becoming mobile, people are coming here, but they still need a community. And new workers bring with them their communities from Silicon Valley and from the East Coast. So Trailhead really has the opportunity to continue to serve as an important bridge by fostering relationships and ultimately solidifying these meaningful and much needed social connections. So thank you so much for all the work that you're doing and keep it up.
Thank you very much. I couldn't agree with you more. I think both Trailhead and the city of Boise are poised for growth, as you said. Financial capital, social capital, and community equity continues to make its way to Boise, and we're here to be a landing place for them and help them get plugged into our community.
Excellent. Thank you. Well said and well done. We will see you again next year, TM.
I look forward to it. Thank you very much.
Okay, on to our next item. We have an Old Boise Blocks on Grove Street neighborhood investment update with Carl Woods. Carl, take it away.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair and Commissioners, and happy Valentine's Day. I'm Carl Woods, Senior PM with CCDC, and I'm going to present the Old Boise Blocks on Grove Street neighborhood investment update today. I'm really excited to share a lot of the great progress that we're making with you. So let's jump in and get to the next slide, please. We have some new faces since the board has seen this collection of projects, so I'm going to do a quick recap. The neighborhood area for the Old Boise Blocks on Grove is located within the River Myrtle Old Boise District. The area is located between Capitol and 3rd, Main and Front Streets. As you can see on the image before you, it's highlighted in yellow. Commissioner Beater, I apologize. The term of River Myrtle Old Boise is 1996 through 2025. So we're getting close to sunsetting the district, and we have a lot of good work underway, and we have some left to do. Next slide, please. So CCDC engaged the community in a visioning process through an award-winning outreach effort, which resulted in a very robust conversation and vision. There's a lot of excitement from property owners and the general public to see this vision come to life. And you can find the report on CCDC's website in its entirety to read at your leisure. The highlights are on the right side of your screen. Couple highlights to go over real quick. The primacy of the pedestrian, more connectivity, complementing the Basque Block, highlight history and culture, explore water and canal, and activate the area and invest in public spaces. And you'll see these themes in the project updates today. Next slide, please. This graphic shows the study area and board-approved CIP projects within it. Some of these projects are completed, some are current, and some are forthcoming. And these projects are a collection of public investments that include the Grove Street streetscape improvements, parcel acquisition, and mobility projects, to name a few. A lot of great projects planned and in process in the area. And today I want to get into more detail on a handful of projects which are now active. Next slide, please. So one quick housekeeping item on these project-specific slides. There is a legend in the bottom left on these slides that helps you reference where within the neighborhood the projects are occurring. The first of these is the Old Boise Blocks of Grove Street streetscape improvements. These are from 3rd Street to 6th Street on Grove. The project is a complete right-of-way rebuild. It focuses on the primacy of the pedestrian, implements a segment of bike facilities that connects the east end to the west end. And we'll see another project along those lines here in a moment. It relates contextually to the Basque Block, providing public space and spillover area on the block from 5th to 6th, offering expandability for events. The design responds to 5th to 3rd Streets, offering a more residential feel on those blocks. CCDC is partnering with the city on an IT conduit expansion, with ACHD on a repaving interagency agreement, and the Boise City Canal Company on canal upgrades. The design team is currently preparing design review drawings to submit towards the end of the month, and we'll be back in April to share that design with you. Next slide, please. 521 West Grove Street. A few weeks ago, CCDC officially acquired a parcel at 521 West Grove. The parcel is kitty corner to Lake Huona at 6th and Grove. It's the southeast corner of that intersection. This parcel will become a public space to celebrate the cultural heritage and diversity of the neighborhood. It will be undertaken in collaboration with Parks and Rec and will include a public process to inform the design. CCDC is in the process of procuring a design team for the work and will be back in a couple of months to seek approval of that design team. This opportunity is a result of conversations that occurred during the visioning of the streetscape designs, and we're delighted to add it to the active project list. Next slide, please. Okay, moving east down Grove, we're talking about another public space, and that is C.W. Moore Park, an existing park. This project is a partnership with Parks and Rec to refresh the park. The refresh will open the park up to its surrounding, making it more inviting and improving sightlines into and within the park. It will address existing safety and ADA concerns, and it will integrate the streetscape improvements to provide a seamless transition to tie all the public improvements together. You're also seeing a sneak peek on your screen today. It also provides a long needed play space for children as more housing is developed within the neighborhood. The image you're seeing on front of you is a first blush at a playground structure. This won't be the final design, but it'll be something in the spirit of this, and it'll be iconic and super cool. Parks and Rec is running this project with CCDC as a funding partner, and we anticipate bringing a T4 designation to you as soon as March for discussion and consideration. Next slide, please. More great news. On February 1st, the city approved the Boise Pathways Master Plan, which includes the important connection on the screen before you. CCDC has the multi-use pathway from 3rd Street to Broadway programmed into its CIP with construction slated for 2024. This project will improve mobility into and out of downtown, ultimately connecting the east end to the west end. Staff is currently working on procuring a design team for the project, and we'll be back for approval of that design team selection later this spring. Next slide, please. Another project involving mobility is the 5th and 6th Street two-way conversions. The city submitted a request to ACHD in late 21 to reprogram funds for the project and carry it forward. CCDC and the city are partnering on the project, and it is currently being scoped with ACHD, with ITD heading up a preliminary stakeholder outreach effort. The design is slated for FY22, with construction currently scheduled for FY25. The two-way conversions will help with ease of navigation, traffic calming, and promotion of business environment, among other benefits. So we're really excited to see this one back on the books. Next slide, please. Another exciting recent addition to the neighborhood. CCDC has worked with our private partners to help fund right-of-way and utility improvements for the Lucy and Thomas Logan apartments through our participation program. You can see the image before you. Lucy is a 6-story building on 6th Street. It's 50% leased up and is filling up fast. Thomas Logan is a 7-story building over adjacent to 5th Street. It's leasing up as well and is expected to be fully occupied by the middle of March. There is an outdoor retailer coming on to Thomas Logan, which could be open as soon as 3 months from now. And there's also a health fitness service provider, which will be coming into that ground floor retail commercial space as well. There's a food and beverage tenant that is signed up to go on the ground floor of the Lucy, and they will be opening sometime around this coming fall. The last of the construction fence is coming down. Everything is really coming together out there. So if you haven't, go check it out. It's a great project. Contextually, it fits in really well to Old Boise, and it's a wonderful addition to the neighborhood. Next slide, please. So that's a high-level update of the Old Boise Blocks neighborhood investments. We're really looking forward to keeping you updated as the projects continue and come to fruition. And just to recap, when we're going to be expecting to be back before the board, March, we anticipate discussing a T4 designation for the CW Moore refresh. April, the streetscape improvement presentation. We're expecting to see you then. May, the 521 West Grove public space design team approval. We should be back for that. And in June, the multi-use path from 3rd to Broadway design team approval should be back before you for that. So thank you so much, and glad to answer any questions.
Carl, thank you. Wow, that's a lot of work to be done and very exciting. I just have to say how cool that play structure is going to be in CW Moore Park. It's not just for people who live downtown, but kids who come downtown, it'll be really nice for them to have a place to go and after they get shoes, a bandana or a bagel around the corner or a chip. There are a lot of things you can do there. It's a really cool way to have a playground. So
yeah, we agree. Very excited about that one.
Really cool. Do any commissioners have any questions for Carl? Any comments?
I don't have a question, but I just want to thank Carl and team for the partnership you provided to city staff and our office. So many game-changing investments that are being made down here. You're helping us advance our pathways plan, which we really appreciate, and really looking forward to seeing the entertainment space and park space built out in partnership with CCDC, and of course the redo, if you will, of the park at CW Moore Plaza. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this is huge. I mean, it's going to help part of downtown look completely new and exciting and, you know, ready for people to use. So,
And
yeah.
Madam Chair, the one thing I didn't touch on is the 5th and 6th Street conversion. This was something that we'd hoped to do a while back. It got waylaid for a whole bunch of different reasons, but now with CCDC staff, city staff, highway district staff, and the state and ITD, we're moving it forward. And merchants and landholders down there are really excited about this. They've partnered with us too to get it done. So it's great to see timing wise that it's moving as quickly as it is. So thank you.
Awesome. And anybody else? No, thank you very much, Carl.
Thanks so much.
Okay, next up we have linen blocks on Grove Street, streetscapes improvement concept design with Amy Fimble. Go ahead, Amy.
Good afternoon, Chair Zuckerman and Commissioners. So Carl just talked about the east side of Grove. My presentation today will be focused on west of Grove Plaza. So Amy Fimble, CCDC's project manager for this linen blocks on Grove Street project. Today's presentation, I'll be giving you a recap of the public feedback we received during concept design, and then share the design that we plan to move forward with into final design. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, project area consists of Grove Street public right-of-way between 9th Street and 16th Street. This project includes significant investment in public improvements such as full streetscape rebuild, protected bikeway, new furnishings, street lights, stormwater upgrades, including green stormwater infrastructure, fiber optic expansion in partnership with the city, and a rebuilt concrete roadway in partnership with ACHD. Next slide. So CCDC kicked off this project back in fall of 2020 and completed a 10-month-long visioning process during which we heard from business and property owners, residents, the general public, and partner agencies on what improvements they wanted to see for this section of Grove Street. In July of 2021, the project transitioned into the concept design phase, and you may recall that we were in front of the board back in September and shared the preliminary concept design. Since then, we have had the chance to do 2 public open houses and an online survey to get feedback on the design. In December, we submitted for a City of Boise design review and actually received that design review approval just last week. So that marks the end of concept design for us and then the start of technical design. We plan to have a 60% design in May and then final technical drawings complete in December of this year, with construction to follow in 2023. Next slide. So as I mentioned, in September of last year, we had 2 virtual public open houses and sent a public survey that got about 40 responses. So I'm just going to quickly run through some of those responses to key questions that we asked the public. Next slide. So we asked the public which elements would make the largest impact in creating a distinct identity for the linen blocks. Among the options were specialty concrete pavement, native planting areas, public art, temporary parklets, and specialty site furnishings. All responses ranked fairly high, which then reinforced the inclusion of these elements going forward in the design. Next slide. We asked the public's preference on which public art opportunities they would like to see within the linen blocks. The historic Boise Neon Sign Museum idea ranks the highest, followed closely by art ports, art frames on fences, and lastly, a landmark billboard sign. Next slide. We asked on a scale of 1 to 100 how important native planting areas were in creating an inviting pedestrian realm. The average response was 74, which again reinforced the inclusion of these native plantings into the landscape design. Next slide. And then lastly, we asked the public to rank the proposed traffic calming strategies to see which ones were most important in creating a safe pedestrian and bike experience. Again, all 3 strategies received favorable responses, with raised intersections and crosswalks ranking the highest, followed closely by curb bulbs at intersections and driveways, and then reducing driveways that cross the sidewalk and bike lane. Next, please. So I'm now going to walk through the overall design of the Grove Street improvements between 9th and 16th Streets. This slide focuses on Grove between 16th and 13th. So 16th is on the left side, 13th heading east on the right side of the screen. We'll be implementing traffic calming features as part of the design. So raised intersections that will give bikes and pedestrians greater visibility as they stay elevated and vehicles actually have to ramp up to cross their path. Curb bulbs at intersections will be utilized to create shorter crossing distances and safer intersections. We also have curb extensions at driveway entrances and entrances to parking lots. So that really narrows the points of conflict between vehicles and pedestrians and bikes and forces vehicles to slow down as they cross them. We have also worked with property owners to consolidate driveways where possible along Grove Street. Another important thing to note is the block of Grove between 14th and 15th. We really see that as the epicenter and nucleus of energy for Grove Street. This block is home to many longstanding and popular businesses that the street design really needed to support. So these are businesses such as Second Chance, Outdoor Exchange, Crazy Neighbor, Big City Coffee, the Linen Building, just to name a few. It's through creative partnerships that we were able to come up with a solution that will solve the existing problematic parking condition while still allowing for an expanded public space on the south side of the block. Next slide. So this slide shows Grove between 13th and 19th. Shown in beige are the numerous private developments that are planned for this stretch of Grove. The project team has been coordinating with these developments to incorporate their plans within our streetscape design. The streetscape improvements stop at 10th, but ACHD's concrete roadway reconstruction extends all the way from 16th to 9th. Next slide. So this slide shows a typical street section. You'll see that the design better allocates the use of the right-of-way across all modes of travel. So we narrowed up the traffic lanes from 13 feet down to 10 feet and allow for 8-foot wide parking stalls on either side of the street. The design prioritized bikes and peds by giving bikes a 5-foot wide separated bike lane that's at the same elevation as the sidewalk and is located inboard of the parking with buffer space on either side. There is a 4-foot wide planting and site furnishing zone, and then a consistent 8-foot wide sidewalk the entire length of the project, which is missing in large portions or is very narrow currently. The project is utilizing an alternating street tree layout with trees planted on either side of the bike lane to maximize shade. All trees will be planted in silvicelles for stormwater management, and we plan to use larger caliper trees to maximize shade. We're also including native drought-tolerant plantings within the pedestrian realm. Next. So this is a zoomed-in plan view of a typical block where you can see some of the traffic calming measures at the intersections and driveway approaches. You can see those bulb outs and curb extensions. Next slide. So the project really plans to utilize unique finishes and amenities to set itself apart and create a distinct identity. So you're not going to see some of the standard streetscape elements. We're using some of these distinct elements to really set it apart from other streetscapes. So the pedestrian realm is made more inviting through concrete pavement with decorative scoring, especially site furnishings such as pet rails that protect the native plantings, and then distinct concrete benches and planters for seating. Next slide. The project looked at various public art opportunities that could either be implemented by the project or by individual property owners. So some of the mural locations that are shown on this plan are already in place, while others we saw as an opportunity for property owners to explore further if they were interested. Same with art frames. The city has an existing collection on the fencing west of the Linen Building, but there's an opportunity to expand that collection to other locations if property owners are interested as well. There currently is an empty billboard sign at the southwest corner of 15th and Grove, and that could be a potential location for public art to be displayed on that framework. We identified the block between 12th and 13th on the north side as the preferred location for the historic neon sign museum. This is adjacent to the Idaho Power parking lot, so it would add some street activation in an otherwise quiet section of Grove Street. And then the neon signs wouldn't compete with neighboring businesses' signage. So I thought that'd be a good location. Next slide. So on the left is an image of the empty billboard sign. This is right next to A. Tabola's parking lot. And then the middle one is the existing public art frames that are located near the Linen Building. On the right is a rendering of the pre-engineered art ports, which are basically podiums that could host a rotating sculpture exhibit. So we have those scattered up throughout the Grove Street project. Next slide. So this project connected with Van G. Osborne, who has a private collection of historic Boise signs called Signs of Their Times. And we're working with Van G. and the city of Boise to incorporate some of these neon signs into the project as public art. As I mentioned, we're planning to site these between 12th and 13th on the north side of Grove, adjacent to that Idaho Power parking lot. The images on this slide are some of the examples of the neon signs that are part of Van G's collection. Obviously, the signs would need to be fully restored and then would be arrayed as an open air historic neon sign museum, which is pretty cool. I had a chance to see them in person, and it's a pretty cool signs as part of her collection. Next. So as far as next touch points for the board, later in today's agenda, we'll actually be asking the board to consider approval of an interagency agreement with ACHD for reimbursement of the roadway elements being delivered as part of this project. And then again, a reminder, overall project schedule, we plan to have construction drawings complete by December of this year, with construction tentatively scheduled to start January 2023. And I'll now stand for any comments or questions.
Thank you very much, Amy. That looks very cool. Can I ask what the rendering is that we're looking at right now?
It was one of the earlier renderings during concept design where we had some of the neon signs scattered throughout. So that's not the actual location that would be in front of the Idaho Power parking lot, but just activation of the street, potential you could use the street for fairs, bring in food carts, just how do we activate the space that currently isn't being activated?
Wow.
And then showing the trees and added vegetation.
Great, thank you. Commissioners, any questions for Amy or any comments?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I might have missed it in the presentation, but what's the overall price tag for the project? And it may be more than one, but if it's what district or districts is it in, and how much time do the districts have? I guess that's three questions, but thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Beater. So this one, Grove Street on the north side is actually the dividing point between West Side and River Myrtle District. I have to look at my cheat sheet. River Myrtle Old Boise terminates in 2025, and then West Side terminates in 2026. Regarding the budget, we currently have 6.7 million from CCDC in our budget, and then we're anticipating ACHD will be providing about 3.6 million for their roadway elements. So we're at about 10 million. So large project.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Any other questions or comments for Amy? Okay, seeing none. Amy, thank you very much. This is wow, it's a really big deal and can't wait to see what it looks like when it's all gussied up. Next we have, let's see, our consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second.
Thank you. We're going to do a roll call vote because we are virtual. So Ryan, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you.
Commissioner Beater.
Aye.
Commissioner Haney-Keith.
Aye.
Commissioner Hurd.
Aye.
Commissioner Jones.
Aye.
Commissioner McLean.
Aye.
Commissioner Stevens.
Aye.
Commissioner Zuckerman.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you, Ryan. Okay, our first action item for today is to consider the annual independent audit of fiscal year 2021 financial statements. And we will have with us Kevin Smith from I. Bailey.
Thank you, Commissioner, Madam Chairman, sorry, I've been listening. I'm happy to be here today to report the results of the audit of the 2021 fiscal year end financial statements. And we issued an unmodified or a clean opinion on those financial statements, and we're happy to report that. And as a result of the audit, we did not have any audit adjustments or any comments related to staffing and processes and procedures. We greatly appreciate the efforts of Joey and Holly and all those who are involved in providing us information. We find it to be accurate and fairly stated. And from a board standpoint, as commissioners, you can be confident as you make decisions during the year when there's no audit adjustments. As I commented to the audit committee earlier today, just because there's no comments and no audit adjustments, it doesn't change the scope of the audit. And it's not a routine audit, it's not a cookie cutter audit. We still dig through items and amounts and schedules that they provide, and we ask a lot of questions, and they provide very well documented information and responses to our inquiries. So we appreciate that. But we just appreciate what they do and what your organization is doing, and some great projects to look forward to. And with that, I will ask if there are any comments or questions related to the audit.
Thank you, Kevin. Any questions or comments for Kevin? Okay, seeing none. Kevin, we've gotten used to having a clean audit, which we do not take for granted, but it's very nice to hear every year, and we appreciate your work with our staff. Do we have a motion?
So moved. Oh, I'm sorry. Why don't I? I move to accept independent auditor Ide Bailey's report of the agency's fiscal year 2021 financial statements and authorize staff to deliver the audit report to all required entities.
Again.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, let's go for a vote, please. Ryan?
Commissioner Beater?
Aye.
Commissioner Haney-Keith? Commissioner Hurd?
Aye.
Commissioner Jones?
Aye.
Commissioner McLean?
Aye.
Commissioner Stevens?
Aye.
Commissioner Zuckerman?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Thank you, Kevin, and thank you, Joey. Okay, next up, we are on action item B, consider approval of resolution 1746, an interagency agreement with ACHD for design services on the linen blocks on Grove Street Streetscapes project. Sorry about that. Back to you, Amy.
Thank you. Good afternoon again. As you heard in my earlier project update, CCDC's linen blocks on Grove Street project includes significant investment in public infrastructure. These improvements are being done in coordination with our partner agencies, City of Boise for fiber optic and ACHD for roadway improvements. Today, I'm seeking the board's approval to execute an interagency agreement with ACHD for design services associated with this project. Next, please. Oop. So what is an interagency agreement and why do we use them on projects? During early coordination with our partner agencies, we often hear that they have planned work in the same project area. So we work together to align the timing of these capital projects and deliver them as one project, really to minimize construction disruption and then also maximize improvements. We then use an interagency agreement to spell out how the expenses will be shared and reimbursed for. The use of these agreements on capital projects is a common practice. Recent examples include 11th Street project that's currently under design and 8th and Bannock project that was constructed last year. Both had interagency agreements with ACHD for roadway improvements. Next slide. So let's talk specifically about the linen blocks on Grove Street project. In this project, CCDC is leading the effort to consolidate two different capital projects into one well-organized project. We have CCDC's streetscape improvements and then ACHD's pavement rehabilitation work on Grove that was identified in ACHD's 2020 Downtown Boise implementation plan. It's through early coordination that these two agencies were able to align the project timelines to deliver these improvements under one project, CCDC's Grove Street project. Combining them into one project allows us to better mesh together the design of all the elements and then come up with a better overall outcome. When it comes time to construct the improvements, there will only be one contractor working in the same area, which is a lot more efficient and easier to coordinate. ACHD will reimburse CCDC for the design costs associated with the pavement rehabilitation, which is consisting of concrete roadway reconstruction on Grove between 9th and 16th. Another reimbursable element will be for stormwater upgrades to bring the system up to current standards. Next slide. So through the interagency agreement, ACHD will reimburse CCDC approximately $112,607 for project design services associated with the ACHD public improvements. Reimbursement for the design of ACHD improvements is expected to be about 32% of the overall design costs. There will be two reimbursements, one at the end of fiscal year 22, and then another at the end of the design contract. Construction cost reimbursement, which is currently estimated at $3.6 million for ACHD's share, will be part of a separate interagency agreement. Next slide. So that concludes my presentation. The suggested motion is on the screen for your consideration, and I'll now stand for any questions.
Thank you, Amy. Any questions for Amy? Okay, do we have a motion, please?
I move to adopt Resolution 1746, approving and authorizing the execution of an interagency agreement with the Ada County Highway District for design services associated with the agency's linen blocks on Grove Street Streetscapes Improvement Project.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion, commissioners? I'm just going to throw in here that it was only about a decade ago that we weren't so good at working with other agencies, and roads would get ripped up multiple times and lots of people would complain. And now it's really exciting to see that we've gotten really good at interagency projects, both for financial reasons that we're making the public dollars go a lot further, and we are economizing the amount of hassle and inconvenience for the public while providing these improvements. So thank you very much, Amy and John and everybody else on the CCDC team who make sure this happens. It's a great service for the whole community.
Sure.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second and no further comments. So we're back to you, Ryan.
Great. Commissioner Beater.
Aye.
Commissioner Haney-Keith.
Aye.
Commissioner Hurd.
Aye.
Commissioner Jones.
Aye.
Commissioner McLean.
Aye.
Commissioner Stevens.
Aye.
Commissioner Zuckerman.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Next up, action item C, consider 1655 West Fairview Avenue, offices at Fairview and Main for a T1 participation designation with Alexandra Manjar.
Yes, hello. Alexandra Manjar, Project Manager in Property Development, and I am presenting offices at Fairview and Main for your consideration as a Type 1 project. This project is from local development firm GSD, formed by Michael Palumbo in 2013. Mr. Palumbo previously worked in Austin and has worked in development since 2003. His portfolio includes multifamily, office, and retail projects. GSD's goal is to enhance the quality of life in areas they build through intelligently designed projects with an affinity for urban walk-live areas. The firm hired its first development associate in Boise this summer, and Mr. Palumbo now lives in Boise with his family. This project is a renovation of an existing office building to improve its interior and exterior conditions and increase the rentable area to just over 28,000 square feet. Next slide. The project is addressed at 1655 West Fairview Avenue. It is in the West Side District, and it's one block from two recently completed transit stations, which were part of CCDC's Main and Fairview Capital Improvement Project. And it is between ongoing CCDC projects, the Type 1 participation designated by the board in December at 1700 West Main to the northwest, and to the southeast, the linen blocks on Grove Street. The streetscapes adjacent to this parcel were recently identified in a district assessment as requiring major improvements to be compliant with current standards. Next slide. The developer has recently invested $148,000 in hard costs to address deferred maintenance for the building, including repaving the parking lot in the rear and upgrading the HVAC system. In this next phase of improvements, he expects to invest $600,000 to add egress to the north side of the building, update the interiors, and perform streetscape improvements. His estimated expenses related to public improvements are just over $222,000. And the project will create an estimated 15 construction jobs. The office will provide space for approximately 63 jobs when complete. And Type 1 projects do not require use of the program scorecard to determine participation. This project does align with urban design principles encouraged by the agency, including activation of a disinvested site through reuse of an existing building, providing commercial space for local businesses, and enhancing the pedestrian experience and creating quality active transportation networks with improved streetscapes. The project has been submitted to design review for staff level approval, and the developer plans to begin construction in March and complete the work by July. Type 1 projects are reimbursed on completion, so CCDC would anticipate issuing reimbursement for eligible expenses this summer or fall. Next slide. The 222,000 estimated eligible expenses include sidewalk repair and upgrades for safety and accessibility, including demo and repair of pedestrian ramps, truncated domes, curb and gutter, and asphalt on the street corners. Note that the sidewalk on the corner of Main and Fairview would be constructed with dry laid brick as indicated in the red area on the plan. The developer will also remove street trees that are obstructing narrow sidewalks and replace them in accordance with mitigation requirements from the city, as well as plant additional street trees and landscaping, install bike racks, and underground utilities. The Office as at Fairview and Main project promotes the objectives of the West Side District Plan and meets the requirements of the participation program. Type 1 projects are eligible for reimbursement of 100% of actual eligible expenses up to $200,000 with matching investment from the developer and subject to board approval. CCDC's current 5-year capital improvement projects plan and budget includes funds for Type 1 streetscape reimbursements that are sufficient to assist with this project. Next slide. So the agency recommends estimation of 1655 West Fairview for Type 1 participation, and a suggested motion is presented. On your slide, if the board designates this project, final agreement will be presented for approval on a future consent agenda. Thank you, and I will stand for questions.
Thank you, Alexandra. Any questions?
Madam Chair, Alexandra, I had heard that the site might have been redeveloped for multifamily prior to this plan, prior to seeing this plan. I'm wondering if there's any history or if you know anything about that, or if the developer just decided to remodel the existing office building to what we saw.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner, Madam Chair. I did speak with the developer about future plans for development, and he is interested in redeveloping the site in the future. That would be a more long-term plan, 5 to 10 years out, so outside of the range of the district life.
So quick follow-up question then. So the improvements that we are talking about today would be site improvements that would remain likely remain there if the site was redeveloped at a later date? That's a question.
Thank you, Commissioner, Madam Chair. I believe that these improvements could remain upon future redevelopment. Of course, there may be some repair that would be required if there was a larger redevelopment on the site, but definitely a lot of it could be preserved.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Anything else? Nope. Do we have a motion, please?
I move to direct staff to negotiate a final type 1 participation agreement with Fairview Partners LLC for future board approval.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Okay, hearing none. Let's go ahead with the roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Beater,
Aye.
Commissioner Haney Keith,
Aye.
Commissioner Hurd,
Aye.
Commissioner Jones,
Aye.
Commissioner McLean,
Aye.
Commissioner Stevens,
Aye.
Commissioner Zuckerman.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. And our last action item today, consider approval of resolution 1742, parking garage membrane replacement and maintenance project. Okay, we have Aaron and Kathy.
Good afternoon, Chair and Commissioners. Kathy Warner, along with Aaron Nelson. And we'll talk about the parking garage membrane replacement and maintenance project. So I'll let Aaron talk about the actual project itself. So next slide, please.
Thank you, Kathy. Good afternoon, Chair and Commissioners. I'm Aaron Nelson, Parking Facilities Manager. Since 2009, the agency has been making major reinvestments to extend the longevity and enhance the appearance of the parking garages. In 2019, the agency hired Veritas Material Consulting to conduct a non-structural concrete assessment of the surfaces at the 9th and Main and Cap and Main garages. Overall, the assessment was very good. The concrete surfaces were in good condition. However, the membranes in isolated areas on multiple levels needed repair due to weather, normal traffic wear, and tire burnouts. And the 9th and Main garage was repaired back in 2011, and the Capital Main garage was repaired back in 2019. Next slide, please. The project scope includes locating repair areas from new coatings plans provided by Hummel Architects, cutting out any flaking or loose membrane, prepping surfaces, and applying new membranes. The pictures provided are examples of traffic wear, tire burnouts, and new coatings to be applied onto the ramps for extra protection. The construction is expected to start in late June, early July when temperatures are at its best. The agency expects the repaired areas to last 10 to 12 years. This project will help prevent further damage to the garage surfaces and its structure. Thank you, and back to Kathy.
All right, thank you, Aaron. Now a little bit about the procurement process. State code requires a formal sealed bid process for public works construction projects exceeding $200,000 and the selection of the lowest responsive bidder. The agency advertised the bid for the project in the Idaho Statesman on December 15th and December 22nd. And in an effort to receive as many competitive bids as possible, a notice was emailed to the plan rooms at the Idaho Association of General Contractors and Idaho Blueprints, as well as to 8 separate public works contractors. Next slide. 2 bids were received by the January 25th deadline. Concerco, a local contractor, submitted the lowest responsive bid. The agency's FY22 budget identifies sufficient funds for this project. Next slide. That concludes the presentation. The motion is before you, and Aaron and I will stand for questions.
Madam Chair. Madam Chair. Uh-oh.
We can hear you. Oh,
Oh.
I'm sorry. I was
No,
on mute. I said, please go ahead. Sorry.
I thought maybe I had it muted. I'm just a little curious. That's 250 grand difference. Are we? I take it we did look, but just to hear a little bit about that the bid's going to hold up. That's not uncommon, but that's a pretty big gap. Could you just tell us a little bit about the winning bid here?
Yes, I can address that. Concerco is a local company, local labor and everything else. The other bid, JRCC, is out of Kansas City and Denver, and so they have to mobilize to our area. Thus, and try to find local labor to do that, to do the project, since they're now a state contractor.
Hey, thank you.
I want to follow up on that. Do we have experience with working with Concerco?
Not in the recent past. It could go back before my time, and perhaps have worked on our garages.
Okay.
They are waterproofing. They specialize in this type of work.
Great. Okay, any additional questions or concerns, comments? Okay, hearing none, can we have a motion, please?
I move to adopt resolution 1742, recognizing Concerco Inc. as the lowest responsive bidder for the parking garage membrane replacement and maintenance project, awarding the contract to Concerco Inc. for the total bid amount of $394,542, authorizing the executive director to execute the contract and expend funds.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, looks like we're ready for a roll call vote. Please, Ryan.
Commissioner Beater,
Aye.
Commissioner Haney-Keith,
Aye.
Commissioner Hurd,
Aye.
Commissioner Jones,
Aye.
Commissioner McLean,
Aye.
Commissioner Stevens,
Aye.
Commissioner Zuckerman.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Thank you, Aaron, and thank you, Kathy, for your work on this. Our next item is to adjourn. Do you want a motion for that, Ryan?
Yes.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Commissioner Beater,
Aye.
Commissioner Haney-Keith,
Aye.
Commissioner Hurd,
Aye.
Commissioner Jones,
Aye.
Commissioner McLean,
Aye.
Commissioner Stevens,
Aye.
Commissioner Zuckerman.
Aye.
We are adjourned.